Hey everyone, I'm sure you are all very interested on finding out exactly what happened at MediCon, what experiences I had, and I am going to be posting some little blog videos for that, as well as on Manic Expression Video you can find the, should soon anyway, find the full MediCon panel footage. The audio isn't as nice as I would have hoped, but we were right next to Fun with J-Pop, so you gotta take the good with the bad. But, on that note, I've encountered an interesting little publication on TechCrunch by MG Siegler, titled, "The Death of Nintendo Has Been Greatly Under-Exaggerated." Death of Nintendo. Under-exaggerated. All these doom and gloom stories is actually, no, that's not even coming close. Everyone's going to fucking blow up. Everyone's going to die. There's going to be a horrible virus that will consume that company, eat the flesh of Miyamoto's face. He says greatly under-exaggerated, so all the stuff that has been said before has not even come close. So, want to find out what he has to say? First off, 3 sentences in a row. I love Nintendo. I love Nintendo. I love Nintendo. I'm sure you've noticed something already. The writing quality isn't very much better than the long spam email I got before when I did it on my conspiracy series, which is why I decided, hey, I should probably do this. But you might be wondering, okay, he says he loves Nintendo. Is he a fan? I don't know if this is exactly right. This is kind of like, it's not like, I love you, but you fucked up, and I have to correct this and that because I love you. It's not a tough love kind of thing. It's not a blind fanboyism kind of thing. It's kind of an abusive relationship that I'm gonna beat the fuck out of you if I ever think you're doing anything remotely wrong. I don't care what the hell you say. I don't care what opinions you have. I'm going to fucking kill you if you step outside of my rule. And remember, I love you. That's the kind of hint I get from that sentence after already reading this. But, yeah. I feel the need to say that over and over again to begin with, because this post will inevitably be read by some as some sort of anti-Nintendo screed. Considering the subject matter he goes into, yeah. I mean, some people might view this video as some kind of way of poking fun of this jackass and calling him a jackass. That's because it is. I know that because every single time I write anything mildly critical of Nintendo, considering what he goes into, I don't know what he considers mild criticism, groups of folks reveal themselves that make Android and iPhone diehards, not fanboys, diehards. There's a difference. He's a diehard. Look like placid hippies. Now, those people are really going to hate this post. Not misunderstand, not take him the wrong way and just, you know, you're gonna hate me for this. But it needs to be written, both because I do love Nintendo, and because if they don't change course, and fast, I'm ultimately going to be proven right! I wasted so much breath blowing on Nintendo cartridges as a kid, so now it's time to waste some breath trying to jolt them out of the death spiral they now find themselves in. I don't think I need to elaborate on that at all. Nintendo is worth more than the games divisions of Sony and Microsoft. So, if they're in a death spiral, Sony and Microsoft are royally fucked, and it's interesting to know what he thinks is gonna kill them off. And make no mistake, they are in the beginning of a death spiral. Nintendo is fine. They're profitable. The rhetoric out of the Nintendo apologists camp is as worrisome as it is predictable. Well, if Nintendo's profitable, and they're doing fine, chances are people are going to tell you when you start screaming that everything is going to crumble beneath them. Yeah, I could have predicted that part. See Nokia and BlackBerry as prime recent examples of the problems with this mentality. Also see the 3DS as prime recent examples of the problems with calling Nintendo doomed before anything happens. See any number of companies throughout the history of ever for others. There was punctuation. It's just hard to see on my screen sometimes. You're profitable and healthy, and a healthy business until you're not. No shit. The mistake often made is to think that dramatic shifts in business can't happen quickly. They can happen very quickly. And Nintendo is in a market that is experiencing such a shift. And if that's the case, again, if Nintendo is so screwed from this big paradigm shift in gaming, then Sony and Microsoft are extra screwed because the Xbox One and PlayStation 4 are more just continuations. Xbox One less screwed because they did include the Kinect, but it's even more expensive because of that, so they're more screwed for the price point. The PlayStation 4 is the PlayStation 3 with better graphics. If doing something like the Wii U is not prepared for a paradigm shift, then doing the same fucking thing as your last generation is certainly not prepared. But let's single out Nintendo here as the worst culprit. As anticipated by some, the Wii U is a dud. I believe I've covered that it's sold more in how long it's been out than the same length of time as the Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3. Sold a lot more at launch, but following that, the per-quarter sales have dwindled significantly, but that's because they lost a lot of third-party support, and they didn't have any of their big titles out, and third-party companies are kind of sitting back like, let them fix their own problems, fuck them. And Bethesda has recently said that Nintendo's time for courting third parties is over, and they have no interest in putting anything on the Wii U, as if Bethesda has ever put anything on a Nintendo console. But beside that point, evidently there's this kind of idea that the way you court third parties is to bribe them. Just pay off a bunch of other companies to make games for your systems, which might be the way the market seems to work now. Nintendo is behind the times in that. But it is saying something about the companies in particular if the thing that makes you feel inclined to make a game on this console is money. That should never be at the heart of making a game. It's at the heart of business, I understand that, but if, as a game company, you look at the Wii U gamepad and what it can do and everything, and your response is, fuck it, I don't think I can make money with that, so fuck ever looking in that direction, you've proven that you have absolutely no creative spirit to me, and I'm not too interested in ever getting anything you put out again. Especially since the later games are more and more streamlined, aka watered down, and the community mods of the old games of yours that I already own are far superior. Anyway. As it went on, the Wii U is a dud. It's actually much worse than a dud. As of right now. It is a colossal failure. I've already mentioned how much it compares in time frame with the colossal failure. At this point in the PlayStation 3's life, it had less games for, an example of the games drought. Both suffered games drought. The Wii U games drought was not as severe as the PlayStation 3 games drought. The amount of money Nintendo has lost from the Wii U is less than the amount of money Sony lost from the PlayStation 3 at launch, and the consoles sold of the Wii U are greater. So, this colossal failure idea is just so fucked. I mean, Wii U can fail. I'm not saying it can't. But you need to wait for shit to happen before you can judge that. It's still within its first year. People were swearing that the PlayStation 3 would fail. I honestly thought it was a legitimate chance, and at the time, Sony's finances were entirely in the PlayStation brand. The PlayStation 2 was extremely profitable for them, which was good because their hardware divisions weren't doing very well. Fortunately, they turned that around for the PlayStation 3's launch, and very fortunately for them, because the PlayStation 3 lost them so fucking much money. If their hardware division wasn't pulling through, Sony could have collapsed under that. But, they pulled a miracle out of their ass, and just, the Wii U's doing better than that, and Nintendo's in a better position. How is this not... Maybe some key holiday releases alleviate the issue. Alleviate the issue of a colossal failure. You mean prove you wrong? Because that's what it sounds like. But the fact is that it's a poor concept accentuated by poor hardware. The Wii U specs, at a glance, power-wise, are not as powerful as the other consoles. Of course, it's also cheaper, but also the way its architecture is put together is much more efficiently, honestly. It's designed from the ground up as a games machine. It is designed to play games. Whereas the Xbox One and PlayStation 4 are designed to do a bunch of different shit all at once. And I'm not sure, I think that I read something recently posted that the PlayStation 4's RAM for the operating system is actually not 1 gigabyte, but 3.5. But some can be allocated away from the operating system in certain situations. But everything I see tells me that the gap, number one, isn't going to be as readily apparent because of the law of diminishing returns, but number two, isn't going to be as obvious because the Wii U is just built so well. Instead of just using standardized general components so that things can be easily ported to the PC. They don't need their games ported to the PC. But that's what developers wanted, so that's what Microsoft and Sony gave them, so that's why I'm going to be getting a lot of my next-gen games on PC. Because they're going to come out for it. Why do I need a PlayStation 4 or Xbox One for that? If Nintendo was smart, because, 127 years of business experience doesn't make you smart, they'd write it off right now. Because it's obviously the best and smartest decision to jump to conclusions. Especially right before your heavy hitters hit that you've been developing for years and you want to make profit off of. Just write it all off right now. But they won't. They'll wait and wait and wait. Those were 4 sentences right there. Commas are for pussies. They'll cite history as their guide that their consoles can take a while to become profitable. And real-world examples don't work, why? But they'll be wrong this time. I've been wrong all those other times that they pulled through, but this time I'll be right. You sound like a... Sound like the guy from that conspiracy video I did. Really, you do. Meanwhile, this is great. I mean, up to this point, honestly, you could have looked at this video and said, well, Decker, yeah, he has a different position than you, but nothing he says is out and out wrong at its heart. Nothing really obviously. You can take it that way because of this and that, but it can be, he could be right. He could be right. This next part is fucking proof that this man is living in a fantasy world. Meanwhile, the Nintendo 2DS will come out and will probably sell quite well at first thanks to a well-timed Pokémon release. But all the 2DS really is an admission that the 3DS is ultimately a failure. You thought that the 3DS is a failure, 3DS is a flop talk, ended when the 3DS became a resounding success. But no! This man still thinks it's a failure! Because they're releasing another SKU! And a lot of people don't like the 2DS. I myself would not get a 2DS, but I understand why it exists. There are people out there that, number one, don't care about the big screen of the 3DS XL, number two, don't want to spend that much money for the system, and number three, don't like or can't watch the 3D effect. So taking out that extra expense will work just fine for them. And it is a very cheap entry point. And it doesn't have the hinge, so little kids can't break it. It's $120. $120. It's a very cheap alternative that plays all the new games. That's a good thing to have that option. There are people out there who maybe just heard me mention that it's $120 and can play all the 3DS games and think, really? I myself would like a 3DS XL. I have a regular-ass 3DS. I bought it at launch for $250, and they gave me 20 games to appease me for that $80. So I bought 3 of them. So that was $240. Anyway, I like Nintendo. Yeah, I spent more on my regular-ass 3DS than an XL ended up costing, which tells me next time they, in 10 years when they release the next generation, don't buy it at launch. But, yeah. Unless they have the XL right at launch, I'm not getting it at launch. But, yeah, 3DS is a failure because... Oh, he even acknowledges some of the points right next. But! Profitable! Sure. A few years after release, Nintendo isn't releasing the 2DS just for the hell of it. They realize that metrics that really matter, that the 3DS is tracking roughly 20% behind its predecessor. The DS is one of the top-selling games consoles of all time, I believe right behind the PlayStation 2. So, if the 3DS ends up selling overall 20% less than the DS, then it will end its life at the 3rd best-selling console of all time, which is a pretty fucking good spot. Or a ridiculous failure, depending on how you look at it. Look at it like a fucking madman. It's a ridiculous failure. That's not a good trend. It's a devastating one. After a few early price cuts to boot. The price cut was... It's very similar to the Wii U. It's so fucking similar, except the 3DS price cut came 3 months sooner and was of a larger amount. 3DS price cut at 6 months, cut of $80, and then a bunch of first-party titles came out that were heavy hitters. Wii U price cut comes 9 months later, it's a $50 price cut, and then a bunch of first-party titles come out that are most likely looking to be heavy hitters. I mean, Super Mario 3D World. But if okay, I guess I understand some point. If this is a colossal failure, then I guess the Wii U is... It's like a black hole of the industry. It just sucks so bad. If you look at it that way, that's yeah. A couple more of those, and we have a company on the brink. How much does Nintendo have just kicking around? What is it, like $14 billion? Just on the side? They have more in profit than the entire games division of Sony is worth? And that's on the brink. How much money does this guy have in his pockets? I want to know. But long-term thinking. The concept of long-term thinking is what people always cite when something is failing right now. The PlayStation 3 didn't pull a profit for like 4 years. The issue is here is that, again, Nintendo doesn't actually have a lot of time to fix what ails them. I just started the console generation, and that's not enough time? Sure, no one likes the knee-jerk reaction, the quick fix, but sitting around and waiting it out is far worse in this case. Even if they would decide to just release another generation console, make another Super Wii U, whatever the fuck, it would still behoove them to wait it out for at least 2 years to pull profits from the games that they're making for the damn thing. Because that's a lot of development costs, and people will buy them. Even if they said now that in 2 years the Wii U is going to be defunct, Super Smash Bros. Comes out, people will buy it. But! Cash hoard? Oh, right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 sentences for that. You know who else has had a cash hoard? Has a cash hoard? BlackBerry. It's doing them a lot of good right now. It will help them with their sale price. That's about it. Sounds like it's doing them good then. But yeah. You notice a lot of phone references. That's not a mistake. That's not accidental. Let's see. In other news, Steve Ballmer was sitting on his cash hoard when he was kicked out the door. Well, yeah, his decisions on pricing the Surface were very stupid. And was proven when they priced them lower, the RT to the point where it's not making a profit anymore, but the Pro just a couple $100 lower. And they started selling! And their name is still synonymous with failed device. Which means if they started at those price points, RT a little higher, they would have been much more successful than they are. And the Surface 2 and Surface Pro 2 are in the works, and a lot of people are saying, oh, why would Microsoft release a second hardware after a failed one? Xbox 360. The original Xbox did incredibly shitty. The 360 was the go-to device of this generation for a while, and that was following a massive failure. And one that they really fucked up when it came to the transition, because when the 360 was released, they just fucking dropped support for the first one. They didn't even let it continue on for a bit. The excuses go on. The key here is Nintendo is on the path of failure for a couple of very simple reasons. Bullet point 1. They have failed to make great products for a number of years now. Do I even have to say anything to that? Why did you fail to be a great product? Why? And the DS before you sucked. The market is rapidly changing around them. This is the interesting part. This rapidly changing market. What he thinks is the death knell for console gaming. Because this is not the guy saying that Microsoft and Sony are going to annihilate the Wii U. It almost sounds like it when he says that it's underpowered hardware, or weak hardware, whatever the fuck he said. But his idea of what's going to beat them is so fucking crazy. It's hard to say which is worse. I'll go with number 2 because I do think Nintendo could weather number 1, failing make great products for a number of years now. So what's the problem with the Wii U? Why is it going to kill them? If they could weather that, then you just fucking as they have in the past for quite a long time. Oh, this is the last of a great many failures, like that original Wii that made them billions and billions of dollars. Such a failure. Now, as much as you can say for third-party games and for gaming in general, the Wii, while selling the most consoles, had the least games per console sold. It was still massively profitable for the guys at Nintendo. I don't see that as something that's going to hold them in a headlock and kill their company for this. Nintendo no longer is just competing with the others in their direct space, meaning gaming consoles and handhelds, meaning Sony and Microsoft. They are competing with every single smartphone and tablet currently on the market. Angry Birds will kill Pokemon. You know, actually, as much as Angry Birds I actually think might have been downloaded more times than Pokemon, I don't think it's been quite as profitable. And soon, they'll be competing with a number of other set-top boxes as well, entering the gaming space at the Ouya. While the Ouya will be an interesting, really fucking cheap console, it's still, it's not as good as an old console because there's not nearly as many games for it, and it's not as good as a new console because it's really, really low power and not many options with what you can do because it's just the basic controller. There's not much it offers. Nintendo's greatest weakness is the illusion, bolstered by years of reality, that they have years to figure out their competition and outlast them. They do not. Who is their competition that will wipe the face of Nintendo off the landscape? Apple! And all the various Android OEMs release new hardware every single year, if not more often. Well, I was playing my 3DS, but I just got this Galaxy S3. Fuck the 3DS, this is newer. So I'm gonna play Bad Piggies. Because it's better than Pokemon. And that stupid 2DS. Yeah, Bad Piggies. This will ultimately end the successful runs of Sony and Microsoft in the gaming space as well, unless they change course. For years now, Nintendo's lone bright spot has been handhelds. The DS was insanely popular, but the world has changed. Now the DS, the 3DS, and the 2DS are just another device a kid has to carry around and the parents have to buy. Why do that when your smartphone plays games? Mainly because the games are so fucking much better on a DS and on a Vita and on anything that has actual fucking physical controls. You can't do much with a touchscreen. It can't replace all of it. It's best to design with the ideas of the limitations of the touchscreen in mind to make really good games for smartphones, but still, there are just some aspects that you just can't touch. And when designing for hardware that is updated every fucking year, you can't be sure of exactly what the specs on people's systems are going to be. So there's not nearly as much consistency between the games. You can't have something that's going to push your smartphone to the limit because it will have to be developed specifically for your smartphone, which will fucking limit its mass appeal significantly, which no one is going to fucking do. Because those games suck. Maybe, but they're quickly getting better. There's a difference between marginally good and Pokemon. And they're far, far, far cheaper, both to make and buy. You know, you don't even need a smartphone for that. Go to fucking Newgrounds. And far, far, far more ubiquitous. Just because something is cheaper, more available, and there's more of it, everyone has access to it, doesn't mean it's going to destroy something that is... It's like saying, well, everyone in the world can play rock, paper, scissors, so there's no reason to ever invest in any game console. As Benchmark Capital partner and longtime video game executive Mitch Lasky recently noted to Dean Takahashi, to quote my 6-year-old daughter, barely looking up from her iPad, "What's a Nintendo?" And I'm sure she said it in that voice, too. Yeah, 6 years old! The only fucking thing she knows is what you've introduced her to. If she has to ask what a Nintendo is, it's because you didn't show her. There is no question that Nintendo's strength is in its IP, its games. But that strength is being overemphasized by those, like me. He's giving them the easy way out in this. I thought he was ripping them a new asshole the whole time. Oh, silly me. He's really pro-Nintendo. Who grew up playing those amazing Nintendo games. Mario, Link, Donkey Kong, Icarus, Samus. The list goes on and on. But unless those characters are constantly updated in tales of relevant consoles, they will fade. It's sad, but true. What's a Nintendo? Said a 6-year-old. You know, I didn't know what Nintendo was at 6 years old either. That's because I was starving to death in Vermont with my psycho-ass father. But hey, I didn't know what a Nintendo was. Of course, that was when the NES was out and fucking annihilating the games industry with all sorts of awesomeness. Hey, fuck, this is... That's why we keep hearing the calls for Nintendo to make games for iOS. It's the OS behind at least 3 relevant gaming machines. iPhone, iPad, iPod Touch. And soon, Apple TV as well. By the way, I own stock in Apple. Apple was going to rule the world. Apple! iPhone is going to destroy the DS. iPad is going to destroy the Wii U. And the iTV, fuck whatever, I don't fucking know, is going to fucking destroy your life. What the hell? Yeah, Apple's doing good. No one's questioning that. But smartphones are far more prevalent in Japan than in America in order of percentage of the population that owns one. And the DS is fucking rocking Japan, and the Vita is doing well in Japan too. If these are the death knell, why aren't they killing it? The immediate reaction from the Nintendo crowd is that this is blasphemy, the equivalent of saying that Apple should license its software to third parties. Wait, why wouldn't they? I mean, yeah, they get to keep everything expensive on, but you know, Microsoft rules the fucking world because of the software licenses. Apple can be good, but it's unless they would let if they would. Apple could have been ruling the world by now, but instead they're ruling smartphones and stuff. But they're not really ruling it because there's a simple other similar alternative came out, and now Android has this big market share, and Microsoft is there. We got a Windows Phone, and no one gives a fuck. But if Apple had licensed the iOS, then other manufacturers wouldn't need to have created Android. They just have iOS phones. Microsoft could make their own hardware phones all they want and put iOS on it. They would have clearly ruled the smartphone world, not just had this huge share in it. So how's that a bad idea? As John Gruber wrote recently, imagine the possibility is a totally different situation. As John Gruber wrote recently, also, Mathis's analogy to the 1990s Microsoft analysis seems inapt. He's correct that it was common advice then for Apple to do what Microsoft is doing, license their operating system rather than make their own hardware. Microsoft is the most successful company in the industry, therefore Apple should do what Microsoft does and just license software to commodity hardware makers. But if we applied that line of thinking to Apple analysis giving advice to Nintendo today, would not the advice be for Nintendo to stay the course? Apple is the most successful company in the industry, therefore Nintendo. Okay, this is such a long fucking article that I ended up overshooting my half-hour mark. Great. So, I think I'm going to start from John Gruber's quote and hope that that's close enough. As John Gruber wrote recently, also, Mathis's analogy, fucking dog! I was hoping that would be avoided by having to re-record. Also, Mathis's analogy to 1990s Microsoft analysis. I did this a lot better the first time recording, even with the dogs barking. Also, Mathis's analogy to 1990s Microsoft analysts seems inapt. He's correct that it was common advice then for Apple to do what Microsoft was doing, license their operating system rather than make their own hardware. Microsoft is the most successful company in the industry, therefore Apple should do what Microsoft does and just license software to commodity hardware makers. But if we applied that line of thinking to Apple analysis giving advice to Nintendo today, would not the advice be for Nintendo to stay the course? Apple is the most successful company in the industry, therefore Nintendo should continue doing what Apple does by making its own hardware and software. Which, if this is something he's citing as a thing that's a totally different thing, I don't understand what his problem with Nintendo's strategy is. If analysts are telling them they should do what everyone else does, and they decide to do their own thing, and Apple was being told to do what everyone else does, and they decided to do their own thing, and it worked out for them, but it's not going to work out for Nintendo because Nintendo is in a different situation. He says the advice isn't the same because nothing is the same. It's a sexy and seemingly straightforward connection to make, but it's deceiving. And by the way, Apple didn't get to where it is today because of the Mac or the Mac OSs. It's because of the iPod, the iPhone, and the iPad. No question there, but they've had it was only successful with the iPhone, iPod, iPad things because with the iPod they earned relevance. With the iPhone, they had something innovative. And with the iPad, they had a huge fan base at that point that would go out and buy anything. And it was the first marketable tablet PC. It was not the first tablet PC by a long shot, but it was the first one that actually did well. And that's what made tablet PCs explode. Also the help of the hardware catching up to what everyone wanted to do with them. But, you see, I don't own a tablet because I own this. I don't need a bigger screen to do the same shit I do on this. There is a tablet PC I want. It's called a Surface Pro. It's a laptop in tablet form. Why would I want that? Because the thing I hate about tablets is they can't do all the shit I can do on a PC, and I need shit that I can do on a PC to have a reason to own a portable computing system. And laptops, I have one. It took me buying one to learn how portable they aren't. Tablets, far more portable. The Surface Pro, of course, is a heavy, thick tablet, but I'll take a half-inch, 2-pound device. That's not too much for me. Which is really the key for Nintendo too. In their current trajectory, I think that Nintendo will end up releasing games on smartphones, but I fear it'll be more in the mold of Sega, when it's already out of the game. Before that, what fucking reason would they have to? Serious? What? Sega wasn't releasing their games on other competing systems until after they were out of the hardware industry. The closest they got was while they were still producing hardware, they had the Sonic games coming out on the Neo Geo Pocket Color, which is a different hardware manufacturer. But they had already left the handheld industry. They had their Game Gear, and they did not have a follow-up. So to speak. The only way Nintendo really thrives, and I agree with the Nintendo diehards here, is if they pull off something truly special. And not this generic crap we see everywhere. A screen and a controller with motion controls and a fucking near-field communication, microphone. I mean, come on. You see these hanging around everywhere. Come on, come up with something original. Nintendo needs to make a case for why standalone gaming should still exist. I'm not sure this is possible, mind you, but I think this is the only way they exit our current era as a leader rather than a has-been. So, even with a successful console, he says, they're still gonna exit. That's just a given. Everyone's going to be fucking crushed by Apple. The Wii seemed close, but ultimately turned out to be pretty much the definition of a fad. It went viral. It did not sell as many games per console. I wouldn't call it a fad. Wii Sports. I mean, the plastic guitar genre. Maybe consider that a fad. It went up, and... But the Wii didn't go... It sold really fucking well for years, and then started just dwindling a bit, but game sales didn't follow suit with all the stuff. That's the... Hey! Still, that thinking outside the box allowed them to, albeit briefly, surpass both Sony and Microsoft. Briefly. Selling more consoles than selling more Wiis than the PS3 and Xbox 360 combined is briefly surpassing them. The Wii U is not thinking outside the box. It's trying to shove their IP into a box, which I love when Apple does it, but when Nintendo does it, fuck it! It seems like they took one look at the touch-based landscape and figured they had to make a move. The touch-based landscape? They had no experience in that before. Not at all. The issue here is that their product is so inferior to the products... Wait for it. Made by Apple! I challenge anyone to find an iPad game that compares to anything! on the Wii U. Except maybe Family Party 20 Great Games, that piece of shit. But anything else? Wow! You... Analog sticks are nice. Face buttons are nice. Start select home. Directional pad, the famous Nintendo directional pad that they patented and no one else can use, and everyone has to come up with these other fucked up directional pads that no one likes. I'm not saying that's necessarily a good thing about patents. I kind of hate that the games tend to work like that, but that's worked out in Nintendo's favor. But, this is one thing I don't like. The triggers are digital. Every other system has analog triggers, and they continue to have analog triggers in the upcoming generation. Why they would do digital triggers, I think it was to make it so it wasn't as scary to the people who started gaming with the Wii and had no idea what all these buttons would do. Analog triggers would be like, oh my god, maybe it was for form factor, I don't know. But I think that was a poor decision. And especially with the Wii U Pro controller, you'd think it's just this with no camera, no microphone, no screen. But actually, it doesn't have the gyroscope for tilt controls either, and the triggers are still digital, not analog. I think they kind of dropped the ball there. That's not at all what he's going to get into. He's just saying that this is completely lacking in innovative qualities. Fuck, I mean, seriously, compare this to compare this to Kindle Fire. Kindle Fire kicks its ass, seriously. And others, that is just sort of sad. It's sad the Wii U is just so much weaker than an iPad. Nintendo not only swung for the fences with this product, they called their shot beforehand, swung and missed, and spun around and fell on their asses. Total disaster. The performance of the Wii U has not been nearly as bad as it's been made out to be, considering it's doing better than the last generation of the other consoles, doing worse than the original Wii, and doing worse than they thought it would. Doing considerably worse than they thought it would. Because they thought that all the people who owned a Wii would just run out and buy a Wii U without advertising or games. Yeah, that was kind of dumb. But it's, considering without advertising or games, it's done as well as it has. It's done better than the Xbox 360 did at launch. It's done better than the PlayStation 3 did at launch. That's fucking impressive. Or a total disaster, depending on how you look at it. Nintendo needs to go back to the NES and SNES era. Hell, even N64 would do. Yeah. The Trident controller, cartridges when CDs are the norm, and for those who don't understand the massive difference there, the Nintendo cartridge could hold, was it 32 or 64 megabytes of, or was it less? I'm trying to remember, how much could a Nintendo 64 cartridge hold? It was in the tens of megabytes. And the PlayStation CD, the Saturn CD, those could hold 500 megabytes. It's a bit of a different landscape there. The fact that they did so many things with the N64 was fucking amazing, but trying to bring that up as a reason to, as an example of how to do things well, compared to that stupid Wii U and doing things that no one else is wanting to do, and it's a terrible analogy, because the Wii U is not only more standardized than the N64 was, but the N64 was an example of them really shooting themselves in the foot by sticking to their guns instead of doing something more standardized. They need to lead by being actually ahead of the gaming space, not pretending they are because of their first-rate IP. Because When Nintendo came out with the Wiimote and the motion controls as standard, and a couple years later then the PlayStation Move and Kinect come out, that wasn't Nintendo leading. When Nintendo revealed the Wii U gamepad, and then Sony worked the Vita to have, you know, off-screen play, and so Microsoft has the smart glass with the Xbox. That's not them copying. No, not at all. Unfortunately, I'm not sure that's possible. Again, the competition is no longer just other console makers on their 5, 6, or 7 year cycles. It's Apple and Samsung with 1 year or 6 month cycles. It's a whole new world. And I have no fucking idea how it works. I suck Apple dick every day. I own Apple stock, Apple rules, Apple. So how does Nintendo compete in that world? I wish I knew. My best advice is to team up with a current tablet/smartphone manufacturer and make the best, and I do mean the best, hardware for gaming. How many times has the best hardware won a console generation? Let's take a look. The NES was the clear winner against the Master System, which had more colors available, less screen glitching, really fantastic graphics compared to the NES, but that didn't help it at all. Then there was the 16-bit era with the Super Nintendo and the Sega Genesis, Master System, Sega Genesis or Mega Drive, and the Super Nintendo had more colors on screen, better looking graphics than the Genesis. The Genesis had a faster processor, more clock speed, that's what they meant by blast processing, and they could do more games with more shit going around at once. And the Neo Geo kicked both their asses severely with actual arcade hardware that looked fucking fabulous and was way too fucking expensive for anyone to ever buy. And that didn't help them very much to have the best hardware. Then there was the PlayStation 1, N64, Sega Saturn, and Sega Saturn had really good hardware, actually, but it was so hard to use, most games ended up looking worse on Saturn. But the N64 clearly was superior graphically to the PlayStation 1, and the PlayStation 1, arguably the least powerful system of that generation, kicked everything's ass. PlayStation 2, GameCube, Xbox. PlayStation 2, least powerful console of that generation, kicked everything's ass, became the most popular sold console ever. So saying that you absolutely must make the best hardware for gaming actually doesn't seem to work out. I mean, I like powerful hardware. Don't get me wrong. But I don't think that because it's less powerful means that it is destined for failure and it should be scrapped and release something better. The industry has shown it doesn't work that way. Releasing early helped the Xbox 360 immensely. Releasing early might help the Wii U. I think that's what they looked at. When can we get this out? What can we have in it? And will it be able to stand up well enough and have a good enough profit point so that soon enough we can start making money on console sales? That's what I think they looked at. They didn't just say, we must make super powerful hardware, we must take a $700 hit on each sale and get it out there, give them away for free, and then hope that people buy 30 games so that we can make our money back. Speed, buttons, responsiveness, definition, clarity, etc. Those are all different sentences. Professional journalism, everyone. Oh my god. Ideally, they'd do this themselves, of course, but I no longer have faith in Nintendo being able to compete in this new era of hardware. Maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. Again, are kids going to carry around 2 devices? What 6-year-old has a smartphone? And if they have a smartphone, they're spoiled brats, and they have a fucking Wii, that's goddamn 3DS and a Vita on them as well. Fuck! Or even better, Nintendo needs to come up with something that neither I nor anyone else reading this could possibly come up with. The next wave of gaming. Think more. Oculus Rift. Side note, immediate thought of Virtual Boy, the horror, the horror. So Oculus Rift, something that's in still prototype stages, is definitely going to kick everything's ass. No question. It's... Why don't we talk about the sales of the Oculus Rift? I mean, it had the Kickstarter where people could buy it, and so we could say sales have started and they sold a couple thousand. How terrible. It's obviously a colossal failure. I know it's not even actually officially released yet, but it's never too early to call something out as a colossal failure. See? Or they need to sell to Apple. Urgh. Massively profitable company that continues doing well. Why? 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 What the fuck? I still believe Nintendo could thrive as a game studio allowed to run independently under a larger parent. Think Pixar under Disney. Remember, Pixar once thought it had to make hardware too. If Apple wants software to move hardware, it's hard to imagine a better buy. And it would allow them to use a nice chunk of their overseas cash hoard to boot. I doubt Apple has enough money that Nintendo would ever say, okay. I mean, yeah, they're filthy rich. I'm not saying they're not, but if they took every cent they had and offered it to Nintendo, Nintendo would probably be like, yeah, we're going to take the next profits for the next 20 years and do much better anyway, so thanks. Yeah, Nintendo will never sell. Never has a funny way of morphing into not yet in certain situations. See the point of this post. Nice source. Oh, thank God it's almost over. All I know is that Nintendo is a current trajectory is one towards failure. Because this was a failure. And if the Wii U fails as much as that, good on Nintendo. The diehards refuse to believe it because they seem to mistake the company's stubbornness for steadfastness. Why didn't Sony scrap the PlayStation 3 1 year or less than a year after its release and throw a PlayStation 4 together in a month and release that? Because that would be better, according to you. Because they were doing so bad, they actually had it. Just you wait, they say. Meanwhile, those die-hard Nokia and BlackBerry supporters are still waiting. Nokia made some pretty bad decisions with Microsoft, bad business decisions and what have you, and I believe Microsoft just bought them, which I think might have been their intention the whole time, to fuck them over so bad that they are willing to sell. So, sometimes partnerships don't work out so well. Others seem to believe that the company has an Apple-like comeback in them in this new era of gaming. We all forget just how rare such a comeback actually is, because we all just watched it happen. Really? we see it happen? With Apple, or maybe a little sooner than that? Maybe something that Nintendo did just a year ago? Fucker. Nintendo isn't just failing because their hardware is subpar. They're failing because they continue to try to retool the Model T while its competition is building Ferraris. Now, I think that this is a thing that people in the comments section already said the best thing I could possibly come up with anyway, so I'm just going to tell you what they said. The analogy completely fails because the Model T was the car designed for mass appeal. It was designed so that every man could get a car. And Ferraris... How many people do you know that own a Ferrari? Yeah, they're high quality, and they're expensive as fuck, and nobody gets them. They get the common cars. They get the ones that everyone can afford. This is a complete abject failure in an analogy. Meanwhile, those that they don't yet perceive as competition are building Teslas. Because everyone owns a Tesla, too. I think less people own Teslas than Ferraris. And others still are out there building rocket ships. Okay, fuck it. He's just going off the deep end here. Fuck it. The Apple rocket ship. All the while, Nintendo is sleeping at night on their pillow of profits, dreaming like Mario at the end of Super Mario Bros. 2. See? I know Nintendo games, see? This all adds up to a rude awakening, and mark my words, it will happen. The earliest memories I have of any electronics is my first Nintendo. Not that light, not the TV, the Nintendo. And that has made me watching the company these past few years all the more frustrating. I can't understand what they're doing, and it hurts my head. Even more frustrating than blowing on those old NES cartridges. How's that frustrating? Works. Did he... How weakly was he blowing into the cartridges that he had to... It's a couple tiny snippets of... It's clear that he doesn't love Nintendo in this article. He loves Apple! He fucking loves Apple! Apple is going to take over the world, and he can't wait! Apple is going to kick Nintendo's ass. Apple is going to kick Sony's ass. Apple is going to kick Microsoft's ass. It's no mistake, no accident that the one who should buy Nintendo is Apple, because he wants his Nintendo game. Really, he loves Nintendo for the games, but they should be on Apple systems, not Nintendo systems. I don't want to have to buy anything that isn't made by Apple. Oh, God, cock and fuck. So, yeah. This is a published article, of all things. This isn't just a random, long rant on IGN. This isn't just something that some jackass has on his personal blog. This is on TechCrunch. How can someone be so out of touch? I know Apple has its own ecosystem, but if you spend this long in it, do you really lose sight of the rest of the world? What the fuck? God damn. Nintendo needs to up the ante with the Wii U, and they are. They are lowering the price by $50. They are coming out with some very nice games this holiday, which is good considering they have pretty stiff competition this holiday with the Xbox One and the PlayStation 4. But the big thing they still need to do, in my opinion, is advertise. Advertise properly. People who don't know what the Wii U is the biggest problem with how to get people to buy it. You got people who didn't know what games were to buy a game system twice. But with the Wii U, that demographic is not following through to it. And that's a problem for keeping it going. So Nintendo has to work on that. But this idea that tablets are going to overtake console gaming just because, it's insanity. I can't think of any... What? I'm at a loss for words. Wow. I guess that's it. Though, maybe I should get an iPhone. I was thinking. It'll take over my need for, eating, sleeping, defecating. I'll just get an iPhone. Get an app for that. Sounds good.